This is Orlando Sentinel Now.
Hello, it's Friday, September 10th. Rich Pope here with Skylar Swisher and Jason Beatty. They have our topics today. Today we're going to talk about the Delta variant in Florida and how it was underestimated by the governor. Also, we're going to find out about big news about UCF, Big 12, excitement there. So let's go ahead and get things started. We're going to start here with Skylar, and we're going to talk about that Delta variant in here in Florida, essentially underestimated by the governor. It's been a really rough summer. What's going on, Skylar?
We went back and took a look at some of the messaging from Governor DeSantis when the Delta variant surfaced in Florida. Now, if you go back to June 15th specifically, the governor made comments along the lines that he thinks that these variants oftentimes were presented in a way to frighten people. And he sort of made a calculation, and his calculation was that we had a high enough percentage of the elderly vaccinated that we weren't going to see a huge spike in hospitalizations and deaths. Well, we have the data coming in now, and August is the deadliest month of the pandemic. So that calculation just ended up being wrong. Now, in fairness to the governor, there were others who also underestimated the Delta variant. I mean, the federal government, specifically with the CDC, issued some guidance saying that the vaccinated people didn't have to wear masks. They later had to go back and revise that guidance when they got more information about just how much of a danger the Delta variant was.
Now that we're at this grim point of 50,000 COVID deaths here in the state, and your story even mentioned more deaths than were lost in the Vietnam War. Where do we stand at this point? I mean, it seems like health officials are saying the message needs to be different. It seems like the mistakes that were made during the summer just need to be counteracted now, counterbalanced. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, the big struggle here is just getting people vaccinated. I mean, and that's kind of the takeaway from the public health experts who we talked to, persuading those folks to get vaccinated, because even though we did have a relatively good vaccination coverage of the elderly population, it was over 80%. But when you look at the number of people who are either unvaccinated or have only received one dose, that's still a million seniors who are vulnerable. And what complicates this even further is that oftentimes these unvaccinated seniors are living in communities. They're clustered together, which that is not an ideal situation for the virus. So, what public health officials are saying is that we really just need to have an all-out blitz, consistent messaging from local, state, federal leaders saying this is a serious threat. You need to wear your mask, you need to follow the guidance, and you need to get vaccinated.
Yeah, let's talk about, as far as DeSantis downplaying it at the beginning of the summer. It seemed like up to that point, though, he was all in. It seemed like vaccinations, he was really at the forefront promoting it. What was the change of tune as far as with the vaccinations and the Delta variant?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the start, especially when the vaccine first came online, and particularly trying to get the vaccine out to seniors, the governor was, very aggressive, held dozens of events across the state. But when the cases went down, there was almost a shift where it was just kind of this mentality like we'd conquered COVID. It was in the rear view. And that's really kind of where the messaging dropped off. And really, even as these cases surged, the governor wasn't out there, sounding alarm bells. Their response is that he swung into action by opening these monoclonal antibody treatment sites, which, the experts said that does make a difference in terms of keeping people out of the hospital, but it's not going to be the solution that gets us out of the pandemic. And prevention is a much better approach when it comes to saving lives and reducing the pandemic cases so we can go back to somewhat of a normal life.
Yeah, your article recently also looks at, we've seen it a lot, this wrestling match between local governments and the state government. And it seems like that's just been the story of this summer, how one says one thing, the other says the other thing. And I think the general population and public are just like, we don't know who to believe or who to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked to County Mayor Demings, and he had a lot of frustration because this is now the deadliest wave of COVID-19 in Florida. But unlike previous waves, local officials were largely constrained in terms of what they could do to try to combat the virus. I mean, they weren't able to enforce mask mandates. So they were kind of left somewhat powerless to do anything here. And also the next, kind of battle that's taking shape is President Biden made a big announcement yesterday, sweeping mandates for employees to either get vaccinated or undergo weekly testing. And Governor DeSantis is already out there saying he just doesn't think that people should be losing their job if they refuse to get vaccinated. So I would anticipate you're going to see a lot of back and forth on that issue as to how far should the government go when it comes to basically mandating or strongly compelling people to get vaccinated.
All right. Well, that's a good read right there on OrlandoSentinel.com right now that Skylar put together. Go ahead and take a look at that and just looks at the past summer and where we're at this point. Appreciate that. All right. We're going to go here to Jason Beatty. So big news, UCF joining the Big 12. Jason, long time coming on this one.
It's huge. I mean, it's one of the biggest days in UCF history, not just from an athletic standpoint, but I think overall university wide. This means UCF's in a Power 5 conference. That's the big thing that fans have been waiting for such a long time. UCF tried to get into a Power 5 conference previously in the Big East, and that kind of fell apart, and they ended up in the American Athletic. But still, it was always known that UCF this day would eventually come. And for those who don't know what Power 5 means, it's really in college football you have two tiers of Division I almost, Group of 5 and Power 5, and that's seen as some people believe there's no real difference in talent. We've seen obviously UCF has pulled up some big wins over the years, beating Auburn in the Peach Bowl and before Baylor in the Fiesta Bowl, but realistically, from a financial standpoint, from a talent standpoint, getting into the Power 5 is kind of like this big validation for UCF and all the hard work that everyone has done and the football players have put into and the athletics as an entirety over the years.
Yeah, I think what's been the most surprising thing after all these years of pushing and scratching their heads, the teams, the fans, like what more can they do? It seems like all of this just unfolded so quickly. Is there a reason that this happened so fast like this?
Yeah, you got it right. I mean, in the past 50 days, it's happened. When expansion happened about 10 years ago, it took multiple months, even years, for this to play out. I mean, it's happened so quickly, and I think the biggest reason that's happening so quickly is it's a little different than previously. Texas and Oklahoma informed the Big 12 saying, "Hey, we're going to the SEC," and really, Big 12 was put on survival mode. Previously when the Big 12 in 2015 was looking to expand, they didn't really need to add teams. Now, in retrospect, they could have made billions with a billion or so more dollars if they had added UCF and a few other schools a few years ago. But they didn't need to. They had 12 teams, and but with Texas and Oklahoma, they dropped down, and really they need survival. They need to survive as a league and remain as a Power 5 conference. So they went out and really the schools themselves expressed their interest. That's the big thing. They weren't able to, go out and search. But hey, UCF, Cincinnati, some of these other schools that have been the top of the American, they expressed their interest. So basically, what's happening is UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati, those three schools from the American Athletic Conference, and BYU, who's independent football, part of the West Coast Conference for the rest of athletics. However, they're the four schools being added to the Big 12, and it's huge for college football, and it really changes the layout of college football in general.
Yeah, clearly UCF has made a name for themselves on a national stage, and it seems like they just grind it out and kept doing it. Now that they're in this Big 12, as far as what are the perks? I assume things like recruiting, that's going to be a big change on them. I mean, as far as it seems like they've done a good job in the past, but it seems like this just adds one more layer of enticement for players to come here.
Yeah, two big things. Number one, recruiting. I wrote about this at OrlandoSentinel.com. You can read it. It's up. It's live. They're able to recruit at a Power 5 level, which means they're able to compete on the recruiting trail, get the best of the best athletes, similar to what Florida, FSU, and Miami are already doing inside the Sunshine State. So, like you mentioned, UCF has done a good job, and they've, won out some impressive battles and competed. And, UCF has really done the most with the least, right, in terms of a talent level, winning all these big games and going undefeated in 2017. But now they're able to tell kids, hey, you don't have to go out of state. You don't have to travel to a Georgia Tech or an Indiana or even a Nebraska and freeze your butt off up north and play power football. You can stay here. You can stay local and play Power 5. The second big advantage is financial situation. Currently, UCF gets around $7 million from the American Athletic as part of its TV rights media deal. That number is pretty small. In the Power Five, that number could be as much as $20 to $25 billion a year. That's per school a year. That's 3 times as much. So, you look at what UCF has done. Obviously, they built an on-campus football stadium, indoor facility. They have some solid facilities. Terry Mahajer, the athletic director at UCF, recently released his idea and his vision for the campus and his plans of expanding the stadium and upgrading everything. Money like this changes what you can do for a facility standpoint in terms of upgrading everything. So this is huge for recruiting and financials, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's such an exciting time for UCF. Of course, they have a game this Saturday with Bethune-Cookman. We didn't even get to that. You can take a look at OrlandoSentinel.com for coverage of that. But we're going to go ahead and call it quits for today. Appreciate you being with us. Until next time, I'm Rich, Skylar, and Jason. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Watch Orlando Sentinel Now live every weekday at noon on our Facebook page and on OrlandoSentinel.com.